Welcome, truth seekers and trailblazers, to the Bigfoot, Wildman, and Boogers show, the podcast where shadows move, legends breathe, and Bigfoot might be closer than you think. Every week, we trek deep into the unknown, dive into the eyewitness accounts, break down the evidence, and exploring the mysteries behind North America's most elusive cryptid.
We're here to bring you real encounters, all the wild and weird, wonderful things that go along with Bigfoot, Wildmen, and Boogers. Whether you're a diehard believer, a backyard camper, or just curious, we're thrilled to have you with us.
Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us grow the tribe and bring even more wild encounters out of the woods and into your ears. Now, grab your gear, steady your nerves, and let's take that first step into the woods with Levi Jamison.
Hi.
Woo!
Yay!
Hello! Welcome.
So this is the infamous Levi, guys. This has become my cohort.
Lots about Levi. Lots about Levi.
It's not my fault, I promise. It wasn't me. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Somebody else.
Levi, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Levi. I'm from St. Louis, originally from Indiana. I live in St. Louis now for work. I run the North American Research Center of Paraufology, which kind of encapsulates everything weird, with a main focus on ufology, that second half there. Kind of have the belief that everything in every way possible is connected. And through that, it's allowed me to interact in different circles of research, between Bigfoot, UFOs, and paranormal or cryptids. So yeah, I've lived in St. Louis for 2 years. I moved here for my real job. I'm a technical designer for outdoor equipment. So basically I make shoes and clothing and gear and then spend a ridiculous amount of time in the woods testing them on trails, off trail, like really deep in. So yeah. Maybe one day I won't have to do that and I can just, go look for UFO stuff, but we'll see what happens.
That's the dream, right?
That's the dream. Yeah.
Exactly. So Levi and I met this spring and immediately hit it off. He said things that caught my attention. I think I said things that caught his attention, and we were like, "Wait a minute, this might work. This might work." So.
Definitely, yeah. That was a good trip. That was my first Bigfoot trip. So you know.
So had you had Bigfoot stuff go on before you met us?
Yeah. So through work and through I primarily work in like the rock climbing industry. So with that, I've always been in the woods, camping, hiking, like really remote locations to climb, and then testing gear just kind of puts me like really, really, really in it for way more than honestly most people think, or most people that are just, camping every weekend. There's times where we would go 2 weeks and you're 4 hours from the nearest anything, road, trail, or whatever, just to get to rocks. So through that, I kind of had stuff that had happened. I'm from Southern Indiana. I grew up in Southern Indiana. So there's like Hoosier National Forest is down there. All through middle school and high school, I had heard like, oh yeah, this happened. But it wasn't until I started going to like this area called Red River Gorge in Kentucky to climb. Had some stuff happen there this was when I was younger too. So this is way before like the interest really burned in. So couldn't really explain some of the things that happened. It was just super weird. It's like a really public camping area, but it's really localized for climbing. So there's a ton of people around, but most of the people that come through are only there to climb. So there could be 200 people at the campsite, but they all disperse in the middle of the day, middle of the night, whatever. So there's not really any interference when it comes to outsiders to an extent. No one's going to hoax you down there. I'll just say that. Right. So had some stuff happen there. And then when I moved to St. Louis, I kind of UFO stuff here is huge. Like MUFON was started in St. Louis. Most people don't realize that. It used to be Missouri UFO Network. There's like a very long history, like really, really long history of, UFO encounters and sightings. And through that and kind of a weird way, now that I think about it, I think it was meant to happen to an extent. I kind of started paying attention to the area and Bigfoot like encounters and cryptid stuff people started seeing just based off of like some things that I kind of thought like, oh, maybe this is tied in. And then through that, I started listening obviously to the podcasts and paying attention to articles and reports. And I had heard the mention of a spot called Weldon Springs, which is about 20 minutes from my house. It's insane. It's like in a nature preserve I think it's like 25,000 acres. It's something.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 39 lakes in the whole entire thing. It runs along the river. But I had heard a report about someone hearing calls out there. So there's a guy who lives on the way to Kansas City. His name's Mike Scott. I think he's on the way to Kansas. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember. But he had talked about hearing calls in that area. And I was like, this is really close to the climbing gym that the company I work for is connected to. Like, it's literally a 10-minute drive. And I was like, maybe I'll run out and see if I can pick anything up. In the UFO stuff, I use a lot of like tech that's weird that most people are like, there's no way this works. You're crazy. And then we go out and data starts showing up and we're like, okay, well, maybe it's not so crazy. So
It works.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. It's not crazy.
So yeah, I just kind of like started paying attention to the location and was like, okay, if I leave work at 4:30, I get there at like, 5 if there's no traffic. And I went one or two times and almost immediately was like, there's a lot going on here. I started noticing that like I was getting paralleled on trails. I had people be like, well, it's a bobcat or a mountain lion. I'm like, I don't think there's mountain lions in Missouri, at least this part, maybe deeper in the Ozarks, but and they're like, oh, it's a bear. And I'm like, I've only heard of 2 bear reports in the area and they were closer to St. Charles. Like, so I kind of tried to debunk everything completely, which was pretty easy to do initially. And then as I started to go more and more and more, like these things do, they kind of become familiar in quotations. And the experiences just kept, skyrocketing. And yeah, it was, I want to say like at the point that I had first talked to you, Marianne, about the first expedition, I think I was leaving the park at that time, but I had been going steady, like 3 days in a row or like 3 days a week trying to get out there. So, and it's still, it's a gold mine of stuff. There's so much going on. And that's part of the reason I say maybe I was, meant to hear these little snippets of podcasts and go out there because it's in the last, I would say 3 months alone, the activity, the information and everything connected in that area has just blown up. It's insane at this point.
Well, so Levi, it's like as a kid, was Bigfoot on your radar or was that just something that has come along because of your, your UFO interest?
No, I was always like, I watched, like Doug Hychek's, program pretty religiously at that point. Anytime there was something on Bigfoot on TV, like I was glued to it. I had an uncle that was an air traffic controller in Indianapolis and it was like equal parts Bigfoot, equal parts like UFO stuff. And I would always ask him, like, do you guys have reports? And he'd be like, no, but we have a black book that someone comes and picks up every month that we're supposed to write all the UFO stuff in. And the same thing living in Southern Indiana, I would see park rangers or hikers or like people that owned outdoor companies. And I'd be like, hey, do you guys ever have like Bigfoot stuff? And locally it was like, yeah, a little bit. To outsiders, it was like, no, there's nothing. But it's kind of been equal. And then just the past 2 years, I really started paying attention to it. like way more, probably an obsessive amount at this point. It's like,
so you're one of us now, basically.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. When you're waking up in the middle of the night, like to jot down an idea for a piece of tech or like an idea to try to like potentially have an interaction, you know, and through the UFO stuff, like I get pretty weird, which is a way later conversation, but we do a lot to try to initiate some sort of like contact or like, you know, like a,
like shoot them with green lasers.
Yeah. In the middle of a field with, you know, no safety or anything around. But yeah, so it's equal parts. But in Indiana, we only had, I think the town that I was born in, we had one report in the 70s of someone seeing one next to a highway. And I know the mile marker. I know exactly where it's at. And this is like desolate cornfield, like flat. There's no trees. There's no hills. Like there's little pockets of forest. And I'm like, maybe, you know, that was a misidentification. But if you go into southern Indiana, where Hoosier National Forest is, it gets pretty dense. And through high school, I started hearing more weird like reports coming from, you know, family members of friends that I went to school with that were like, yeah, we were hunting and we shot a deer and something dragged it away and we saw the trail for a mile and then it disappeared. So, you know, it's been there for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of like the rest of us. Now, Jennifer's been drug into it. She's not as fanatical about Bigfoot as we are, but she's getting a real quick education about it.
You don't pay attention to it until something's walking next to you in the middle of the woods and you can't hear it. And you're what's going on? What is this? You know, so.
Yeah. Or until something's chucking rocks at you.
Yeah. Or boulders at the top of your cabin where there is no one around that's picking up boulders that big and throwing them that hard and fast through the trees. So
right. Yeah, those things kind of make you pay attention.
Yeah. I'll try not to swear on this show. It's hard for me. It's usually when I get spooked, two things happen. I can tell pretty crude jokes to try to, you know, make it not as crazy. And when other things that I can't explain happen, it's just like beep, 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 you know.
Yeah. Well, that's like I said, I'm gonna start putting like a GoPro in the truck and record the truck rides, and I'm gonna put it on a fans only page because we're gonna have to charge for that because
probably. Yeah, if I could, I was laying in bed the other night thinking, I was like, you know, if I could tell jokes like I do in hairy situations on stage, like I might have a career in comedy, but I don't know. I don't know if the world would go for Bigfoot. Yeah. They're pretty niche in their, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, you know, and I'm always telling people, I'm like, you have not experienced this until you've ridden in the truck with Levi and he's slightly spooked.
Yeah. It's kind of, it doesn't, I don't know. It's like a switch. It's weird though. Like when it comes to, I have noticed that if it's like, if I'm alone and I'm like I have crazy stuff happen all the time when I'm alone. If I'm out in the woods alone, it's not like that. It's only, I don't know what it is. I think there's like some psychological thing that's like, you can't be scared alone. But the minute you're in a group, you're like, holy crap, what is that? Like, I'm freaking out. Where is everyone? Who's that? Right. I have no way to explain it at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe I need a psychologist to go, this is why.
This is what's wrong, right? Exactly. Well, it's entertaining. Let me tell you that. It's definitely entertaining. So tell them about, Levi, let's go back to the spring on that expedition. Your very first night out there, what you were woken up by and what you saw.
Yeah. So the first night out, I had never met anybody from the group. This is the first time I met Marianne. I pulled in really late. I'm historically late to everything. I can leave the day before and I'll show up 12 hours later and be like, I've been on my way the entire time. So I pulled in pretty late. It was like 11 o'clock, I think. You guys were still around the fire. And I rolled up in my RC car truck that makes no noise and was like, hey, I'm Levi. Where do I camp? And you were like, right there, right next to the food, everything. So trailer, food, coolers, all of this. So we didn't have very much time to talk. And I think I told you, I was like, hey, I'm going to try some stuff that I try on my own. I'll let you know times. So I had picked, I'm like nocturnal, like 3 a.m. is 2 p.m. to me, like 5 a.m. in the morning is like normal me awake, like what's going on. So I have this thing that's called the telephone. It's kind of becoming this, like, I don't know, like
It's your signature.
secret thing that people want the explanation for, but you'll never get it. I'll never tell you how it works. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do some stuff. I'll start at 1:30 and I'll do it for a 10-minute block and we'll see what happens. So 1:30, I go at the top of this hill, and just to set up the scene, the camp, if you come down this paved road, the campground is on the right. There's woods right before it. Across the street on the left-hand side is inaccessible property to us. It's basically private property. So I walk up the hill, 1:30, I make a telephone call. I walk back to the car and I'm sitting there, and I did the call for like 10 minutes. We'll just leave it at that. It's a sequence of things that I do to try to like drum up some, reaction. My favorite part about this thing is reading the comments after, where people are like, it's a ghost box, it's this, he's a devil worshiper, whatever it is. It's pretty entertaining to see what people speculate that the telephone is.
Right.
There are a few people more recently that have got it and understand like the seriousness of it, but I like being like as baseline, you're not going to figure it out as possible, because it's partially entertaining for me, but it's also because if you use it wrong, stuff knocks on the door in the middle of the night that you don't want to open the door to. And 1:40 in the morning is right at the crest of when that stuff starts to come up. So 1:40 hits, I'm sitting in the truck bed, and behind me is another gentleman that's on the expedition, and he's maybe 20 yards from me. And I'm just laying there and I'm like, yeah, nothing's going on. And then out of absolute nowhere, we get hit with this sound of, it sounded like 220-pound bobcats, like going crazy, fighting, like absolutely the loudest. Like I was convinced that when I looked out of my little tent lean-to, I was going to see 2 bobcats in the road. So I look out, there's no bobcats. It's so loud that I'm shocked no one else is out. Like I was seriously like, how is no one else hearing this? Is this like a normal thing for these people? And they're like, oh yeah, it's nothing. So the guy behind me also, I hear his tent and he pops out and he immediately just has FLIR like up and ready to roll. Like it was like he had it glued to his eye and was sleeping with it, like waiting to,
Probably just laying with it on his chest.
Yeah.
I think that was Mark, right?
Yeah. So
Mark's a night owl too. So he was up.
Yeah. So we're looking around and there's nothing. And like, it's bright enough in the camp. The moon is pretty high at that point. I want to say it was close to a full moon. So there was a lot of like overflow of light. But we're looking left and right with flashlights and the FLIR, and like I've got headphones on. I wear shooting muffs pretty regularly to drown out all the annoying people sounds and then just get nature. The annoying people sounds is a joke for people that don't get it. No, they're great. They allow you to like kill you can be standing right next to people and they're talking super loud and all you hear is the woods and movement. So I put these things on and I'm like, I'm stumped. I have absolutely no clue at this point. And he's like, I'm not picking up anything. There was even with red and white light, like there's nothing standing there. So this goes on for a good 15 minutes. And at some point I kind of just was like, okay, I'm going to lay back down. So I go back into my little lean-to. My cot is set up in my truck bed. So I have like a bit of elevation. So that's the first thing. And then about 20 minutes after it starts, I start hearing what sounds like the latch on coolers popping one at a time. And then the cooler lid, like deliberately being opened, like super slow, not like raccoon crazy smashing, it was more like something was trying to be really, really quiet. So I kind of pop my head out and the movement stops and I can't see all the coolers clear enough to where I'm like, okay, it's a raccoon. So I get back in and I hear it again on a different cooler, and same thing. It's just like this super quiet, like as quiet and slow as possible. You can hear the creak because they're plastic hinges, but you don't hear, it's not like something's ripping it open to like grab all of it and run off into the woods.
Right.
And then that happens 2 more times. And this is maybe 15, 20 minutes. This is not a long block of time of this happening. And then this is what really got me. I hear the latch on the trailer. So it's like the swing latch with the bar. There's no lock on it. So I hear the top latch open and you can hear it go pink, like into its spot. And then I hear this handle being pulled out and I hear the door as quietly as possible, like just super slow, like no movement, no other sound, like no rustling on the ground or anything. And I'm literally sitting in my bed, like the edge of the tent is here and I can see direct line of sight. And I'm watching this door just like slow. And it's open enough to where it's like, you could reach in and grab stuff if there was something right there, but you're not going to like swing the door open and get in. And then at this point, I'm like mildly freaked out and I'm like, this is super weird. I have no clue how to explain any of this. So I hear the door shut and everything. And then I basically just stayed up the rest of the night because I kept hearing movement like all around the camp. I didn't bring FLIR at that point. I brought like one piece of tech that's basically a UHV VHF radio that's tweaked to pick up different signals from those guys up there. So I didn't bring all the stuff that I probably should have and would have, helped a lot in that situation. So basically 1:40 to 5 a.m., it's just nonstop activity, but I can't see anything at all, like nothing whatsoever. And I was expecting like a raccoon or like a possum or something, like even an armadillo, like, but then I'm like, how does a raccoon open a trailer door that's the size of a house door, So yeah, that was the first night. And that was pretty eye-opening because I'm not a skeptic, but I was hesitant because I was like, okay, how are we going to be in a giant group of people and have all this stuff potentially happen when there's, however many of us around, the area. But I was shocked. That first night I was shocked. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my cat is
we can see her.
Sorry. Yeah.
Quit. Sorry. Yeah. So
my Henry was being obnoxious the other night when we were.
Yeah. I found this cat on the street and I probably should have, I don't know. This is my computer plug that just popped out because of the moo. Moo, you have to stop. Okay. Okay. There we go. So yeah, that was the first night. Second night was totally different. Still equally as alarming, but totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was a night that anybody that's watched, we've talked about, the UAP that night. So, we spent a good couple of hours messing with that. Yeah,
it was a substantial amount of time, in my opinion. And I believe at the time there were 17 of us, and it was right around 2 hours. And that 2 hour mark was when you guys came back from trying to find the source of the light. But that's the second night. I can go in the second night whenever. If you guys have questions about the first, let me know. Well, and now, wasn't there one night, Levi, and maybe I'm wrong, that something actually screamed at you and you could see it up the road, right? No, it didn't. So it didn't scream. This was the second night. Okay. So we had went out and we're kind of like jumping timeline here. So yeah, the second night. So, we had come back from the camp and I was like kind of on edge at that point. We had a lot of crazy stuff happen. And exactly where I made the phone call, I saw something walk into the middle of the road, crouch down, and then get up and turn and start to walk towards the property that we didn't have access to. And
Right.
within a good foot and a half, this solid black figure just goes nowhere. Like there's no fog. There's nothing that would block this thing. It's not like there was, a curtain for this to walk into. I saw the movement come in, crouch down. I kind of picked it up like in my peripheral. And I think the reaction was it saw me see it. So it sat down and then decided, okay, I got to get out of here. This guy is paying attention. So yeah, it stands up from its crouch position and just kind of walks into nowhere. There was a little bit of eye shine, like yellowish, but not bright, vibrant yellow. But it wasn't the overwhelming. But it was, and the size was it was really hard to determine height because it was like 120 yards away and up on a hill. And right as the hill started to crest, it's like just on the very backside to where, if it laid down, I wouldn't see it. If it was crouched, I probably got a little bit of hill hide from it.
Right.
But that was when we got back to the camp, and that led into an entire night of sheer terror for me. But yeah, the first night or the second night. So we didn't go out the first night. We just stayed at camp. And when I woke up, I kind of told you what happened. And you were like, that's pretty interesting. They're like, we didn't hear anything. I know there were recorders and potentially some, I think someone found 2 prints. I can't remember exactly, but it was super odd that Mark and I were the only 2 people that heard it. I have a theory why, but it was just crazy to me because it was so loud. Like it was like someone's blaring a car horn right there, and there was nothing, like no signature at all.
Yeah, there were some feral cats running around.
Yeah.
And some of the people were talking about hearing those.
Yeah.
So if they had heard them, they may not have been paying attention.
Yeah.
To the other, because they were quite loud for a little while, because we did hear them.
Okay.
And I think at some point you get to where you're like, it's cats,
Yeah.
We've heard them type deal. But if you want to go ahead and tell some of the stuff that you had go on the next night.
Yeah. The cat thing too, it wouldn't have been alarming to me if I could see the cats. Cause like I said, we had FLIR and a billion candle light and couldn't pick anything up. So the second night is a little different. I had kind of told you like the phone call thing, and you were like, okay, yeah, maybe we can try this at another location. So the group split. So it's Robbie, right? Am I right?
Yes.
He's the police officer. Okay.
Yes.
So Marianne and I go, this whole entire group, massive group of people. We go to this small, I guess it's not small, this river with a load in for boats.
Yeah.
And she's like, we're going to sit on the dock. There's a big, huge, like 100-foot bluff. Sometimes we start seeing like eye shine or whatever up top there. So we went there. There was a group that had built a campfire and just kind of sat in a circle. And then Dennis had put out recorders before. So the group split like this. It was basically the campfire group with no electronics, just kind of making noise to try to be like loud or whatever. And then you and I were on the dock sitting, and I was hearing stuff in the distance, which was interesting because the direction it was coming from played into later on that evening. And then Robbie had taken a group of 4 people, including Mark, and then Lou, and I can't remember. Paul. Yeah. So they went off. So they walked, we drive in, there's like trees on the right, trees on the left, and it opens up into the left. So they had went out as everybody split, and they were going to go try to find tracks and track that way. So at some point when we were sitting on the dock, Marianne's like, hey, why don't you try a phone call? Like, we're hearing stuff, but we're not hearing a lot. So I take the telephone and I walk basically halfway between the entrance and where the the load in for the boats is. Sorry. So I start doing a telephone call. I've got my headphones on. The telephone is pretty physically taxing for me. It takes a lot of energy, figuratively and literally out of me. So I had asked you guys to come listen in the headphones so I could, do the phone call stuff. So I hand you my earphones. You're I can't remember who you brought up there.
Martha was with
Martha.
me.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Martha. I'm sure you'll see this. So you and Martha were standing back. I did a telephone call, and almost immediately I hear you go, "Whoa." And then I turn around and the headphones come off, and you're like, I just heard an audible voice say boom, like a long, low, drawn out boom.
Yeah.
And then in like within 5 minutes there, after the boom, we start hearing what sounds like a freight train just absolutely blazing through the woods, basically straight towards the direction that I was doing the phone call for, which was kind of alarming to an extent. So it kind of, everyone starts hearing it. So people are like kind of looking around trying to hear stuff. So we start hearing this thing coming towards us. As I first heard this, I had seen what I thought was two sets of eye shine, like peeking out from a tree, one at like 4 foot and one at like 6 foot. And I could see the blinks, and I could see the lower one, like looking back up, like it was looking at something behind it. And it's not super far, but it was so dark down there that like there was no ambient light really.
Yeah.
So at the same exact time, this crashing is coming through the woods. We start hearing crashing to the left of that, which turned out to be two little armadillos that sounded like, footballs being kicked through the forest.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what happened. But Robbie and his group are coming towards us, and I didn't realize it, but they had heard two growls as they were walking in on their left, which is the opposite of the woods that we were hearing this crashing. So they get closer, and as they're getting closer, this crashing is just like, it's like barreling through the woods at this point. And it was moving fast enough to where it sounded like, I would estimate from the first point we heard it to the point where it stopped was maybe 200 yards. Cause it was like, you could hear the ramp up in noise as it's getting closer to us. So at this, they come back, they get growled at. We're standing right there, and we're looking directly into the wood line to where we're hearing this crashing. Robbie walks off to the left. Two armadillos come hauling balls out of the woods trying to get away. And then the rest of us are standing there, and this boom and this sound is like 5 feet behind the tree line, maybe 25, 50 yards at the most. But they didn't burn underbrush in this location that we were at. So the wood line, it's super thick. So we had FLIR, night vision, and thermal, plus red, green, and white light. And everybody that's hearing this, that's standing right there, is like trying to see this thing. And no heat signature, no visual. And we kept hearing it move. It was almost like it came to the tree line and wanted us to know that it was there, but it wasn't going to get close enough to where we could see it. Or it was cloaked to an extent to where we're not going to have a visual, which, thinking back to the first night and hearing that sound and the cooler sounds and all of that, my brain's going, maybe this whole cloaking thing is like a real possibility. So yeah, this is like, we had only been at that like load in for maybe an hour. Like it was almost instantaneous. Like phone call happens, whatever, woke up, came barreling through, and then was just standing at the tree line and is like, I'm here. I'm not going to let you see me, but I want you to know I'm here. And I made all this noise. I had heard someone, I talked about it a little bit on another podcast, and I think in the comments, someone was like, well, it was a bear. And I was like, if a bear is going to haul at us that fast, it's not going to stop at the tree line. It's clearly
it's
not
going to charge you.
Yeah,
Right.
I was like, it would have popped out of the tree line. And we stood there for a good, it had to be 10, 15 minutes just hearing this movement, trying to see something. And we kept switching light. Like,
yeah. And you had a hunter with you, a very skilled hunter with you. And he was a little rattled.
We talked at the camp later. And he was like, I've never had something like that happen. He said, I've hunted the same plot in Illinois for 25 years, and I've never felt that way. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that makes sense. Like, if someone's going to be comfortable hearing this noise, it's going to be him because he's, probably taking a shot, like something like that. So that happens, and it gets to the point where we can't hear anything else. There's no sound. Like, it's just standing there. And the more I think back on it, I'm like, whatever it was just sitting there watching us. Like, it's your move now. Like, I'm here. I'm waiting for you. What are you going to do? You're going to walk into the woods. No one had the cojones to do so. We were all like, I don't know. Like, you just smashed through the trees, like no big deal. And it was not easy. So, it was loud. Like, and I still don't know if the recording or anything had picked it up.
We'll have to ask Dennis because, like I said, Dennis had, like you said, had recorders up there, but it would be completely different if you could pick that heat signature up and know what you were walking into. Yeah. But when you're essentially walking in there blind when you can hear it and there's no heat signature. Yeah.
And I know for a fact that like between FLIR, thermal, and night vision, something would have penetrated the tree line enough to where we could, with a pretty solid confidence be like, okay, that's a bear or whatever. But we didn't see anything. And you typically don't have those three things right next to each other and you don't see something.
Right.
It's almost mathematically impossible for that to happen at that point. You should be able to pick up some sort of signature. So everybody's like, we have no clue what it is. We're just going to leave at this point. We'll go to another location. And as we were getting into the trucks, Robbie had mentioned that he had seen trees at the 8-foot mark that were twisted, not broken, but twisted, which, requires an opposable thumb and the ability to do this. And they were tall. And this is the first time I've seen that. And I was like, okay, this is like way more than I thought it was. Like, I knew that Bigfoot did weird stuff. I knew that Sasquatch did weird stuff, like the trees upside down or like curving branches and then shoving them or full trees, the tree structure thing. But to see, and mechanically, like in my job, like I have a pretty good understanding of like movement and what the human body can do. And seeing that at that high and the thickness versus how green the wood was, and it's just twisted, like my mind was blown at that point. So we stop, we see that, we go to this other location, which was another load in, and we didn't really have a lot. And then I was like, maybe I'll try another phone call. So I broke off from the group, did another telephone call, and I didn't pick anything up. And this is where it gets kind of goofy for me, because I'm the dude that knows about UFOs. Like, I'm the guy that's comfortable with this stuff coming through. And I had no notice whatsoever until someone else in the group was like, where's Levi? What's that light? And then my attention goes, oh, this is a light in the middle of the field at about 110 feet max height. And it was moving in a way that is not possible for a drone, is not possible for an aircraft. And to me, it was like, okay, this is what we would consider a UAP at this point in current UAP. So we start paying attention, and I took the only piece of tech that I had, which is this tweaked radio that picks up stuff. One of the things that I do with it is I just scan. I run a scan from super low to super high radio waves, and if it stops in a region that's kind of like a known frequency in the UFO realm, you kind of start to pay attention. And that's what this thing was designed for. And people will say, oh, you just picked up a radio station or you picked up a radio frequency that someone else was using. And I'm like,
Right.
Technically you could be right, but it's when you're paying attention between 10 numbers and it's burning through all of those back and forth and it's not stopping on a single one, that doesn't mean it's a frequency that you're picking up that's normal. That's an oddity that doesn't happen ever. You would have to have a bunch of repeaters all over and you're pushing the button talking to someone else and they're pushing the button and the signal's bouncing through all those repeaters to have that type of behavior. So sorry, but I just debunked your theory of it being a signal that it's, picking on. And I'm watching this thing like just go crazy and I'm hearing it and I'm watching the numbers and I'm like, okay, like maybe I isolate it from myself or like from anything that's electronic. So I tossed it as far away from me as I possibly could without losing it. And it's still just going back and forth. It's similar to what people experience in a SB7, like a ghost box, where it burns through a frequency and it picks out sound, like but you hear a voice here or there.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that, but it's different. So at this point, I'm paying attention and I'm like, okay, this light is doing characteristically what many consider like a sweeping or like they're flying a grid or they're scanning. And one thing that we noticed with literally like 17, potentially more, maybe up to 20 people here, it started reacting to flashlight. So it would dim and get brighter, and then it would grow and shrink back down, and then it would move like in and out and back. So we started to try to debunk. So, okay, it's reacting to a flashlight. That's weird. Let's look at it through binoculars. Okay, well, it's moving in a way that's not consistent with a static light on a pole and tree brush in front of it.
Yeah,
there was no heat signature. There's no sound. So I suggested, let's point a laser at it. So the laser comes out, which is
we're all like, Levi, what's that do? And he goes, potentially draw it to us. I thought everybody was going to scatter in a heartbeat.
I'm pretty sure in everybody's brains at this point, they're like, this guy's an idiot. Like, there's no way this is like a UFO. And then we hit it with a laser, and the first thing it does is it retracts, and then it comes back, and you can see it growing, and you can see it getting brighter, and then it moves to the right, and it dims down to this tiny little light again. And I'm like, okay, it's reacting to the laser. We need to try to find a source just to be safe. So you guys go out. It was like you, Robbie,
Robert and Billy.
Yeah, Robert and Billy, you guys drive off and try to find the source. And Robbie's a police officer, which this was pretty funny to me when he came back. So as you guys peel off, we're looking at it with everything. Like, we had a truck spotlight and we were beaming it with the spotlight. Like, every time we did it, there got a reaction. We noticed that it was maybe a couple hundred yards, like maybe 300 yards from us in this field. And I had noticed that it was just right above a pretty tall tree line. So I'm like, we should go towards it. And everybody's like, no, that's a terrible idea. And I'm like, no, if anybody's going to go, like, we should do it. And then Lou, I'll never forget this. This is like my favorite thing that's ever happened on an experience like this. He's like, yeah, we should go towards it. And everybody's like, no. And he's like, what do you think, Levi? And I was like, I mean, yeah, if you want to go. And he's like, curious minds got to know. And that was like the signal, like, we're going in. So we walk through this field, and the field is super tall grass, like taller than I'm like 5'2", not really, like almost 6 foot. And it was tall. It was Lou is like 4.5 feet tall. So, he was, sorry, Lou. So we're walking towards this thing, and we hit a fence line, and I'm like, man, the last thing I want to have happen is like, it's some dude like doing something, and that's his land, and he's going to shoot us because we came over this fence,
Exactly.
We're in like rural Missouri too. So it's
it's
crazy.
a possibility.
Yeah.
So what was really, side note too, the name of the town that we were at is the same name of the town that I was born in Indiana, which for me was a giant red flag. And then This last expedition, I drove through and very close to a town that is the same as those two. So there's a timeline. Nothing is a coincidence. If you think it's a coincidence, you should really rethink that. It all happens for a reason. Anyway, Lou and I are standing looking at this. We're at this fence and we're like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, let's hit it with the flashlight again. So he pulls out his light and the same thing. It's moving. We could see it like moving through the trees. Honestly, if we could have gone over the fence without, potentially getting shot at, I would have climbed the tree and tried to get as close as possible and potentially disappeared, which would have been, okay, maybe I would have come back. So
you could come back.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we're just standing there looking at it. And at some point it's like, I'm bored. Like we can't do any more. Like people had video of it. We had it on, recorded in multiple ways. And then so we walk back towards the group. Very shortly after, you guys pull in and Robbie's on the phone and he looks like he's seen every ghost that he's ever heard of. He saw Bigfoot, the boogeyman, whatever, everything that could possibly not be real. This dude, the look on this dude's face was like sheer and total shock. And he's on the phone and he's like, we're out here and we can't find the source. I can't explain this light. There's nothing in that field. And that's, validation for me. Cause I'm like, yeah, this is like what we're seeing. Like I told you guys it's potentially a UAP and it's probably scanning and it's probably harmless. At most,
probably.
Yeah, probably. At most, it's the closest thing to a drone for them. It could be unmanned. It could be whatever. We have no clue.
Right.
There's no one knows. And if you think you're wrong. So he's shocked. He's like just, I could tell that he's like, I can't explain this. So at this point, it's like 2 hours of sitting there, just like staring, like befuddled at this light. And everybody's like, we're bored. Let's go back to the camp. So we go back to the camp. And everybody else is fine. And for me, it turned into one of the scariest nights I've ever had for no reason whatsoever. Just absolutely like terrified. I think that morning, the following morning, I literally, the best way to explain it is I felt like something was just like going to come out of the woods, grab me, break me in half, smush me into a ball and put it in its pocket and take me wherever else. And it was terrible, like absolutely like, and I don't get scared. Like I've had some pretty traumatic things happen in my life to where my like level of calm is pretty high. And this was the first time where I was like, holy crap, like this is really bad. It was so bad that I set up 2 white lights pointed at the woods that I felt like everything was coming from, because someone said, well, yeah, if you point a white light, they won't walk up to your tent. And I was like, cool. You're not walking up here. So what happened? We get back, everybody else goes to sleep. I'm freaking out the entire night. I keep hearing just all kinds of stuff. And I finally get out of my tent and I pull my phone out because I see 2 sets of eye shine and I start filming it. And I slowly notice that it's like looking around and it's kind of bobbing down like a deer. And then it breaks off to what would have been my right. So it's left. So it walks away. And I didn't notice anything before in the video. I sent you the video the next day. Not this last trip, but the one before that, Land of the Lakes, Marianne was like, hey, that video that you took at the first expedition with the eyes? And I was like, oh yeah, the deer in the woods. She's like, yeah. She's like, we were looking at it through the chat and there's a giant black figure to the right of the deer that stands up and sits down and then moves away. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, we had a bunch of people that saw in the footage. There's this like, I can't see it. I have to look at it on a computer, but apparently it stands up and it's right there and it's big and tall. And I'm like, oh, okay. So me being scared and freaked out was a normal thing.
Was justified.
And I heard later on, this all came full circle for me when I heard this other interview. This guy was talking about someone from the Pacific Northwest who constantly had stuff happen when he would hike. And then he got the mind speak, whatever mind speak is. And he's like, these things basically said, when you're scared, we are there. And I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, he's talking about it in this interview. And he's like, they told me that next time I'm in the woods, I'll feel scared and to look around. And I'm like driving in my car, hearing this. And I'm like,
oh crap, oh crap.
You little crap heads. Like, you were there and that's what it was. Like, you were trying to be like, look around more, stop being so scared. But it was just, I mean, after the light thing, like we literally got back to the car and I was like, I'm freaking out. Like, this is bad. And then the second night, or the night after that, the same thing happened. And we went, this is the killer part with the UAP. The plan was to go back to where it was. I went back before the rest of the group. As I was driving out, off in the distance, I see 2 trees that have been pulled and shoved into the ground. In the middle of the day, I slam on the brakes, get out, run up to them, took video, and was like, holy crap, like I just heard about this. This is the first time. And there's 2 that are right there. I go back to the spot where we saw the UAP. It wasn't there initially. And then as soon as it got dark, I could see this little light in a different location. So we have the light in the same spot, not in the same spot, but the same general area in 2 nights in a row. Dennis went back later. Was it later that week that he went back?
No, we all went back later that night because you ended up going home.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So I left.
And you left and we went back to that exact spot because it was drizzling.
Yeah.
And we couldn't hear anything where we had been. There'd been some cars through. So we left. We were like, hey, let's go see if the light's back,
Yeah.
And we went back out there and it was back in the exact location that it had been the night before. And part of it, like during the day, when Levi was catching up on his sleep, we were out there with drones and we droned that whole area. There's no buildings, there's no lights, there's no pole lights, there's nothing. It's nothing but woods out there. So there's no way it could have been anything else. And yeah, we sat out there for probably 30, 45 minutes that night watching it. We're like, yep, it's back. Okay, let's go to camp.
Crazy. So one thing that's interesting about me leaving is, and I didn't realize this until I got back to St. Louis. So I drove back on a Saturday night, and I thought it was Sunday. So there was for some reason whatsoever, either just sheer confusion or terror, I'm missing a good 24-hour block of time that I didn't know until I woke up at 8 a.m. the next morning to go into work. And my girlfriend's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I got to go to work. And she's like, no, you don't. And I was like, yeah, I've been on the expedition. And she was like, it's Sunday. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, today is Sunday. You drove back Saturday night. And I'm like, no. And then I'm looking at the phone and I'm looking at all the dates. And I'm like,
oh,
huh? Just totally confused. So I came back a day early, didn't intend to do so. But later on, and I told Marianne this, I checked the location. So in ufology, we have different ways to figure out whether it's an airplane, helicopter, whatever. And there are these nonlinear radar sensors that are made by a guy specifically to track anything that flies in a unconventional flight pattern compared to helicopters, commercial and private, and drones. So these sensors are all connected all over the world, and they're all over the country. There's tons of them. So in that area, there's a sensor to the left 10 miles, there's a sensor to the right 10 miles, and then 12 miles, there's another sensor. So for 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after we were at that location, there's a flight pattern of something bobbing around that area. And these nonlinear radar sensors, they measure pretty far. And when they're connected like that, they measure really, really far. So I was able to backtrack time and travel of this anomaly that we couldn't explain. And then another week after that, I had heard a podcast where a guy was talking about his family has interactions all the time with Bigfoot. They have 45 acres. And he said that the week before we were there, he had no clue the BFRO had done this expedition. But the week that before we were there, they had seen 2 or 3 Bigfoot, like pretty close, like less than 50 yards. And they had UFO activity in and around their farm for 2 weeks before. So there's 3 levels of data plus eyewitness of 17 plus people. I mean, you can try to debunk this stuff all the time and as much as you want. And you can try to debunk, certain experiences that are seen and happen to a lot of people. This is one of the biggest. The UAP activity wasn't really crazy, but I don't know another report that has that much data stacked on top of each other that the military doesn't currently have and hold, in their files, that proves that there's an anomaly out there very close and potentially connected to, this is where everything starts to come into my realm, where it's all connected, where that much data and that many people can say, yes, I saw this, I was there, we watched it for 2 hours. It will never get the publicity that it should, but it is a very, very big experience, in my opinion. It's one of the most profound that I think I've ever heard of and experienced alone.
Wow.
Well, it definitely was an eye-opener for the rest of us, because that's not what we were out there for, but boy, that's what we got that night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the whole, Bigfoot and UFO people don't really mix. Like, I think more and more now, and my goal especially is to, try to, kill that division, because I'm sorry, but if the UFO people and the Bigfoot people, if they think both groups are crazy, there's nothing there. That's just stupid. Let's just be real here. That's just a level of idiocracy that it should not be there. Like, these things are it happens more and more than I think people think. So,
Well, and it's arrogant for people to believe that we are the only intelligent race in the universe. I'm sorry. We're not the only ones. They may not look like us, but there's more out there.
Humans are dumber than dog dirt, if you really think about it, compared to a lot of things. I mean,
well,
a dolphin with its sonar can go ping, there's a ship over there, or ping, there's a rock. We're on the low. We only are at the top because we have firepower and skis.
Yeah,
so,
and we like our violence so well,
Yeah, I will blow you up if you try to eat me. Is where we're at. But so that was the first BFRO, and that was the first expedition I went on. And that's not even just my personal stuff. It's just continuously going up and up and up to a pretty alarming, rate of things happening at this point. So
right. Yeah, I like those little texts I get from you sometimes, and it's like, I always know it's going to be a doozy with whatever you send me, I get tickled when I start to get texts from Levi, so it's pretty funny. But so we've about got to our hour here, but you're going to have to come back, because we still have other adventures to cover, and we've got more adventures planned. So, you may have to be a regular for a while so we can get caught up.
Yeah, it's to the point now where we're having activity, not just at my research location and not on the expeditions. Like, there's stuff filtering in, potentially to my neighborhood or my apartment directly, or my house. It's my fault. I'll say that. The whole entire building is a portal to an extent. But yeah, it's like, we can go as crazy as you want to, or we can go as mild as you want to. I will say this, just like that first trip, don't be alarmed if black SUV pulls up in front of your house and,
Levi did pull up in front of my house. That's why I was texting you going, because this is one of the things I said to Levi. I said, do we need to report this? He goes, I already have.
Yeah.
And we're walking along later, and I said, Levi, our black SUV is going to show up at my house. And he goes,
potentially,
possibly. Yeah. And I'm like, that's funny. And about 2 weeks later, I happened to look out. The street we live on shouldn't have that kind of vehicle parked on it, right? It was all blacked out. I don't know how long it was in front of the house. When I noticed it, it only stayed about 5 minutes. But I'm texting Levi going, there's a black SUV in front of my house.
It's alarming when you see them and you go, oh, that's weird. And then they start to pull off and you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, I can.
Even weirder. Yeah.
It's hard to do on video, but I can pull up photos and documents and just a ridiculous amount of stuff to be like, hey, like this is the reality when you start poking. And for me, my area is pretty weird. So I have a lot of weird stuff that, happens.
Well, and we will definitely come back and do that,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We'll get into some of the weird stuff that, is going on because, people want to hear that stuff too. I mean, it's not all just Bigfoot. I mean, there's some of it, but we'll definitely get into that. So,
yeah. I'm always down to come back. I'll talk to anybody that wants to hear this stuff. It gets boring logging all this stuff and being like, who can I tell about? No, that person's not going to care. Or they'll be or the Men in Black might show up at their house too.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. So yeah, but yes, we will have you back, Levi. We'll get into some of the weirder stuff later on, as we go along here. But yeah, this is just the beginning of many adventures.
Yeah, for sure. Jen, I think I need to make you and send you a Faraday hat as well.
Faraday hat. Yes, I've heard about the Faraday hat. I need one.
Yeah, I was showing her my hat, so we got tickled over that. So
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, it's funny until it works. That's all I'm gonna say.
I stuck my phone in it. I said, should I carry my phone around in this? Kind of laughing about it, but so all right. So, okay, tribe, that's all for this episode of the Bigfoot, Wildman, and Booger Show. Thank you for wandering the woods of Missouri with us today.
You enjoyed today's encounter and want to keep these legends alive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us keep track of the wild and legendary encounters that make Missouri so special.
We'll be back soon with more mysteries, more encounters, and maybe a few surprises hidden in the shadows. Until then, keep your boots muddy, your eyes on the tree line, and remember, show me your Bigfoot.